Our onion skin controls are right here under the timeline, and we can set these ones up. Now, the onion skin itself refers to kind of old-style animation, the way it was built up. The idea was the animator would do exactly what we were doing, drawing their sketch. By using a semi-transparent sheet, you could look through the paper and see the last drawing, so you could use it as a reference for your forward drawing. Now, under normal operations, as I move my playhead around, I can only see one frame at a time. So I can see frame 10, I can see there's no changes, and I'm not going to see any change till 15, at which point 10 disappears. That's what onion skinning is going to do for us. Let me just turn that on here with onion skinning controls, and I've got a couple of sliders dropped up in here. I can grab a hold of these, and I can pull them out and extend the number of frames that I can see down in my timeline. Now, if we take a look, I can see frame 15 as a bold frame, so I can tell which frame I'm working on. But I can see the previous settings as a little bit transparent, and you can even see as they go further back in time, they get more transparent. So I can see the ones that are closest to my keyframe setting and other ones that are further away. If I'd like to see the whole animation, I could stretch this on out so that we could include as many frames as we wanted to see for reference or not. Now, a lot of times you might want to tighten those settings up so that you could just see the previous frame and the frame after it and use those as references for the frame that you're working on. And there you can see the exact position of this leg from one frame to another where it goes forward and steps and drops in. Now, if you're doing this with a much more complicated figure, this onion skin view can get to be a little crowded. We've got another setting for onion skin right next to the original button I selected that lets me do onion skinning with outlines. Now there you can see it's showing me each of my layers with outline mode. That's not much different with the stick guy because it sticks in outline and sticks in the painted view. A little bit thinner, but you can see how that can clean up a very complicated vector if you were working on it at that point. You can see that the layer colors match the preview colors for each one of the layers. So this is also good because you can tell what's in what layer. For instance, the head and that body part are all green, indicating that they're in the body layer. You can see that the purple is going to be the back arm, and the yellow is the forward arm. So those match those colors right in here. That's also a nice thing about that outline mode is you get to preview an object as it runs from one keyframe to another in a single layer. Let's go back to onion skin mode, mostly because I can see my graphic a little bit more clearly here. And we do have some other controls with onion skin as well in the Modify Onion Markers panel here. This is a drop-down panel that'll allow you to set things like, for instance, a couple of normal ranges. Onion 2 will set your range so that you're seeing 2 frames back and 2 frames forward. Now, this is not going to help us in our case because I spaced out my elements by 5 frames, but I could use the Onion 5 setting, which is doing the same kind of thing. That's going to make sure that I see 1 keyframe back and 1 keyframe forward under the current scenario that we've got. If you've got a lot longer animation, you could see how Onion All would help out because it'll span the entire animation and you can see all the different elements as we're working backwards and forwards. Seeing multiple frames like this can help you in a lot of ways. For instance, I might go into some details and add some nuances to my animation here, like the fact that when you take a step and stand, like we do in this frame, your body generally kind of bounces up a little bit as you extend your leg. And so I could use that information to make a couple of quick changes. I could have his body move up just a little tiny bit and get some leg extension in there. Have that connect up. And again, probably not enough to see in these few frames that I've built. But as you progress in your animation, you might want to be able to include details like that. You can do that by getting that reference from the original values. Another way to use this onion skinning is to actually use it to create new keyframes for you. Again, getting that reference from the other keyframes that we've already set up. I'm going to pull it down to the end of the movie, and what I'd like to do is let me tighten this up just a little bit. I'd like to make a new keyframe in between these 2 steps, and I can use the previous and the next step to directly tell me where I should make my changes. I'm going to select that column there and just insert a set of keyframes in between the 2, and with this set of keyframes, now I'm going to tighten this up really tight so that I can only see the previous and the next step. Now I want to make sure I grab the body in the frame we're working on and the arms, and you'll see what I mean. Now, when I made the keyframes, it took a copy of the last keyframe and pasted it forward. So what I've actually got is 2 stick figures right on top of each other visually. I've got this keyframe and this one. But if we're selecting the right one, I should be able to move him in, and you see how I can look at the previous one and the next one and make sure that it's directly in between. So I'm actually using that as a measuring stick for exactly how far I should be moving the elements. Looks like I disconnected his arm there, but we can reconnect that up pretty easily. And you can see again, previous, that middle one, and the next one. So I've got a direct reference each time as I go through. Same thing with the legs. If I go and reattach his legs back up, I can see his back leg at this position, and then he starts bending it a little bit more. So I can use those as a direct reference to see how much I should bend in order to go in between those two. He moves this leg a lot more. So I'm going all the way from this position to this position for the knee. And his foot probably should be turning around, I suppose, at this point. So yeah, we can see my anatomy needs a little bit of work. But you get the idea. We're turning on this onion skin so we can have a direct reference of exactly how far I should move and make it much, much easier for me to build a drawing in between those two. All right, let's turn off onion skinning and let's see what we've done. I can just scrub right along this and see that we've started a halfway decent walking guy here. He pops and bounces a little bit, and you can see that this is a very, very tedious process. This kind of frame-by-frame animation is very similar to what they did for early animated movies, where each individual frame was hand-painted. A lot of times those are referred to as cell animation because the painting was done on cellophane or acetate. But pretty tedious, very time-consuming work. Now what we're going to see in later lessons is we're going to try to find ways to have our Flash program generate these frames in between frames for us.